Welcome to my channel. Have you ever noticed that sometimes silence speaks louder than words? There are moments in life when no sound is needed, no sentence is spoken, yet a deep message is given. Today, I want to share with you the lesson I learned when silence itself became my greatest teacher. Stay with me until the end, because this story will not only give you a life lesson, but it will also help you improve your English step by step. Chapter 1. The beginning of the moment. I still remember the day very clearly. It was a normal evening, and the room was full of people. Everyone was talking, laughing, and sharing their thoughts. But in that moment, I noticed something unusual. I asked a question, a simple question, but instead of getting an answer, I received silence. No one said a word. At first, I was confused. I thought maybe they did not hear me. I repeated the question, but again, there was no reply. That silence stayed with me, and I felt something I could not explain. It was heavy, but it was not empty. It was full of meaning, and I did not understand it at that time. In our lives, we expect words all the time. When we speak, we want a reply. When we ask, we want an answer. We feel safe when we hear words because words give us direction. But when silence comes, we often feel lost. For English learners, silence can also feel like a problem. You may ask a question, but your friend does not answer quickly. You may pause while speaking and you think something is wrong. But silence is not always wrong. Sometimes silence is communication itself. That night, I realized something. Silence can be a language too. It can tell us when words are not enough. It can tell us when emotions are too strong to speak. It can also show respect or even disagreement without saying a single word. This is what made me curious. Why did silence feel so powerful? Why did I feel the answer without hearing the words? As English learners, we also face silence in our learning. Sometimes we don't know the right word, so we stay quiet. Sometimes we pause too long and we feel nervous. But silence can also give us time to think, to choose better words, to prepare a stronger sentence. That was the first time I felt silence not as an enemy, but as a teacher. And it was only the beginning of the lesson I would learn. Chapter 2. The silence that spoke to me. After that evening, I kept thinking about the silence. I asked myself again and again, why did it feel stronger than any words? When people speak, their words can be soft, loud, kind, or even rude. But silence has its own sound. It does not use letters or grammar, but it touches the heart directly. That night, I realized that silence gave me more information than any sentence could give. I saw faces, I felt emotions, and I understood the answer without hearing it. That was the first time I discovered that silence is also a form of communication. In English, we usually think of learning words, phrases, and sentences. We want to speak more, to say more, to express more. But sometimes, learning also means learning when not to speak. For example, in conversations, silence can mean, I am thinking. It can mean, I respect you. It can even mean, I do not agree. If you look carefully, silence teaches you more about people than their words. When someone stays quiet after you ask something, maybe they are afraid to hurt your feelings. Maybe they are showing you that the answer is difficult. In this way, silence is like a mirror. It shows emotions without speaking. When I teach English, many of my students are afraid of silence. They think silence means they are failing. They say, teacher, I don't want to stop. I want to speak fast like a native. But I always tell them, silence is not weakness. Silence gives you time. It makes your words stronger. Imagine if you pause before answering. Your words will have more weight. Your listener will feel that you are serious. Even in English, silence can make your message more powerful. That night taught me that silence is not empty. It is full of meaning. It speaks in ways that words cannot. It gave me a strange strength. and I started to see silence not as a space to escape, but as a place to learn. Chapter 3. Learning to listen between words. After that experience, I began to notice silence more in my daily life. At first, I thought silence was just an empty pause, but then I started to pay attention, and I realized that silence was teaching me something important: how to listen between words. When people talk, they say many things, but the truth is not always in the words. Sometimes it is in the quiet space after the words. That space tells you if the person is sad, nervous, or happy. It tells you if they are hiding something or if they need time to say more. This was a big discovery for me because I understood that silence was not just quiet, it was also communication. For English learners, this is very useful. Many students think speaking is only about words, grammar, and vocabulary. They want to learn thousands of words to sound fluent. But speaking is also about listening, waiting, and watching. If you listen carefully to silence, you will understand people more deeply. For example, if you ask a friend, "How are you?" and they say, "I'm fine," but then they stay quiet and look away, the silence tells you more than the words. You can feel that they are not really fine. This skill helps you not only in English, but also in life. I started practicing this with my students. When one of them stayed silent after I asked a question, I didn't rush them anymore. Before, I would push them to speak quickly, but now I gave them space. And in that silence, they often found the courage to speak. I realized that silence is like a bridge. It helps people cross from fear to expression. And the moment they spoke after silence, their words had more strength. Silence also taught me patience. I learned that good communication is not a race. You don't need to speak faster than others. You need to speak with meaning. And sometimes the pause, the quiet, the waiting makes your words shine brighter. I discovered that when I respected silence, my connections with people became stronger. That was when I understood silence is not a gap, it is a gift. Chapter 4. The Power of Saying Nothing. One evening, I was sitting with a close friend who was going through a very hard time. I thought I needed to say something wise, something that could comfort him. But when I opened my mouth, I stopped. I didn't speak. I just sat there. At first, it felt strange because we are used to filling every moment with words. But after a while, I noticed something: my silence gave him space to feel, to breathe, and even to cry. And when he finally spoke, his words were deeper and more honest than if I had spoken too soon. In that moment, I realized that sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing at all. For English learners, this is very important. Many of you feel nervous when speaking. You think, what if I make a mistake? What if I forget a word? And then you panic. But silence is not a mistake, it can be your friend. If you forget a word, it is okay to pause. Take a deep breath. Think. Silence shows that you are calm and confident, and often, silence makes your next word stronger. In fact, when good speakers talk, they always use pauses. Pauses make their speech clear and powerful. I started teaching this in my classroom. I told my students, don't fear silence. Use it. When one of them gave a presentation, I reminded them to pause after an important point. At first, they were shy, but slowly they saw how silence made the audience listen more carefully. Their words didn't disappear into noise. They stayed in the listener's heart. Silence also taught me to listen to myself. In the quiet moments, I heard my own thoughts more clearly. I could ask myself, what do I really want to say? What do I really feel? That inner voice, which we often ignore, started guiding me. And I realized that sometimes silence is not empty. It is full of answers, if only we take the time to hear them. That day, I understood silence was not weakness. Silence was strength. Chapter 5. Silence became my teacher. After I discovered the power of silence, my way of teaching changed completely. Before, I used to fill every second of the classroom with explanations. If my students were quiet, I thought they were lost or confused, so I rushed to speak more. But one day, I decided to try something new. I asked a question, and instead of answering for them, I waited. The room became quiet. At first, the silence felt heavy. Some students looked nervous, some looked down at their books. But then, slowly, one hand went up, then another, and finally, they began to speak. I realized that silence gave them time to think, and in that thinking space, they found their own answers. This changed everything. I no longer feared silence in my lessons. Instead, I used it as a tool. When I explained something important, I paused. That pause gave the students time to understand and repeat the words in their minds. When I told a story, I paused before the most important moment, and I saw the students lean forward, waiting, curious, excited. Silence turned into suspense. It made the lessons stronger, more alive. Even outside the classroom, I saw silence helping me. When I listened to people, I stopped interrupting with quick advice or fast answers. I let them finish. I gave them space. And I noticed something beautiful. They trusted me more. They shared deeper feelings because they felt heard. That's when I understood that silence was not only about me, it was about connection. It was about giving respect to others and letting their voice matter too. For English learners, silence can be the best teacher. When you pause, you give yourself time to remember a word, to choose the right sentence, to speak clearly. And when you listen in silence, you hear new vocabulary, new accents, new ways of speaking. Silence is not empty. It is full of learning. That is when I realized silence doesn't stop communication. It makes communication real. Chapter 6, the final lesson. The day I truly understood silence was the day I sat alone in my room, without my phone, without music, without books. At first, it felt strange. The world is so noisy, and I was used to filling every second with sound. But then, as I sat in that quiet moment, I began to hear something else, my own thoughts. I realized how often I had ignored them because I was too busy talking or listening to noise outside. In the silence, I asked myself questions. What do I really want? What do I really feel? The answers did not come fast, but when they came, they were honest. And I saw that silence was not my enemy. It was my guide. From that day, I started to walk differently through life. In conversations, I listened more. In teaching, I used pauses to help my students grow. In learning, I gave myself time to think before speaking. And in life, I used silence to find peace. Even in difficult moments, the biggest lesson was this. Words are powerful, but silence can be even stronger. Sometimes silence gives courage. Sometimes silence gives respect. And sometimes silence gives healing. If you are learning English, I want you to remember this. Don't be afraid of silence when you speak. If you pause, it is not a mistake. It means you are thinking. It means you are learning. And it means you are brave enough to wait for the right word. Silence can help you become more confident, more clear, and more real. That is the lesson silence taught me. And I believe it can teach you too. So the next time you're afraid of silence, don't run away. Listen to it. Learn from it. Let it speak to you. Because sometimes silence says everything we need to hear. Thank you for watching this video. If this story gave you something to think about, if it helped your English, or if it made you feel stronger, please support this channel. Subscribe, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what lesson has silence taught you. Your words might inspire someone else. And remember, every time you listen, every time you pause, every time you practice, you are getting better. Stay with me, keep learning, and let's walk this journey of English together.